Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Welcome to our class in Srimad Bhagavatam. We're continuing our study, Canto 1, Divinity, Chapter 2, which is called Divinity and Divine Service. And today we will be on Chapter 2, Text 22. First, let's say like this: Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, we are, as I said, up to text 22. Just to give you the context again, I'll just, here I'll read 8 from 18 and just the translations. We'll come up to 22. This is Sutta Goswami talking to the sages at Naimisharanya forest. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. 19. As soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effects of nature's modes of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankerings, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness, and he becomes completely happy. 20. Thus established in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by contact with devotional service to the Lord gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. Thus the knot in the heart is pierced, and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive action is terminated when one sees the self as master. That's where we've gotten up to now. So here's now, we're up to text, continuing. Notice how they lay it on the line. This is what should be happening. If it doesn't happen like this, we're doing something wrong. You can check, what am I doing wrong? Okay. So now we're on 22. I'll use, never mind. Yeah. Ato vai kavayo nityam bhaktim paramaya muda vasudeve bhagavati kurvanti atma prasadanim. Certainly, therefore, since time immemorial, all transcendentalists have been rendering devotional service to Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, with great delight, because such devotional service is enlivening to the self. Bhanu Swami translates this a little more simply. We'll go back and look at the differences and the similarities. Remember, Bhanu Swami is following the purports of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Certainly, therefore, we read that, his translation, thus the wise constantly perform bhakti, which gives joy to the mind, to Lord Krishna with great joy. So you could see here, ataha, therefore, vai, certainly, indeed, all transcendentalists, this is this word kavi in the plural. Kavi means one who is wise. The dictionary definition, gifted with insight, intelligent, knowing, enlightened, wise, so on. These kinds of words are there for kavi. A wise man, a sage, a prophet. This is the kavi. And of course we have the title Krishnadas Kavi Raj, the king of the kavis. So here those people who are in the plural, kaviyaha, transcendentalists, rendering devotional service to Lord Krishna since time immemorial, it says here. This is Prabhupada's translation of Nityam. Nityam means always. So you can say, yeah, for a long time they've been doing this. It also can be perpetually, and therefore Bhanu Swami's translation is constantly. So since time immemorial or constantly. Therefore the wise constantly perform bhakti. That's the, so you can go back. They've always been doing this since Nitya, perpetually. Or they do it all the time now. Constantly. So certainly, therefore, since time immemorial, all transcendentalists have been rendering devotional service to Lord Krishna. Here his Krishna is unto Vasudeva Bhagavati. Remember, Vasudeva with the long name is Krishna's patronymic. The son of Vasudeva is Vasudeva. And who is Bhagavan, Bhagavati. To the Lord Krishna, personality of Godhead, they've been rendering bhakti with paramaya mudha, great delight, with great delight. Paramaya mudha, with great delight, or great joy, as Bhanu Swami translates it. And why do they do this? Atma prasadanim. It gives delight to the self, or gives joy to the self. Because such devotional service is enlivening to the self, or you see how Bhanu Swami translates this, the wise constantly perform bhakti, which gives joy to the mind, to Lord Krishna, with great joy. So he uses the same word twice. Prasadanim, and also mudha, using the word joy for both of them. So let's read Srila Prabhupada's purport here. The speciality of devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, is specifically mentioned here. So it means speciality, this unique feature, the outstanding feature of devotional service is specifically, notice I use a speciality and specifically mentioned here. Lord Sri Krishna is Swayam Rupa, personality of Godhead. So they're saying it is directed actually to Krishna specifically, because he is Swayam Rupa, personality of Godhead. Uh, uh, we'll get into that a little later in the purport, but he is uh, the Lord himself. He's not an expansion or expansion. He is Krishna himself. Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. That'll be in the next chapter that comes out. So this is, but here Prabhupada wants to let us know that he is the Swayam Rupa, personality Godhead. Swayam Rupa meaning his own form. But this is Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead, and all other forms of Godhead. Sometimes it is said that if God is a person, it would limit him. So he has no boundaries, so he's just like a cloud of gas or something. But here, he has many forms. He's not limited by having one form, so he has many forms. So, but of all those forms, Krishna is the Swayam Rupa. And all other forms of Godhead, beginning from Sri Baladev, Sankarshana, Vasudeva, Aniruddha, Pradyumna, Narayana, and extending to the Purusha avatars, Guna avatars, Lila avatars, Yuga avatars, and many other thousands of manifestations of the personality of Godhead are Lord Sri Krishna's plenary portions and integrated parts. That's quite a sentence. It's really giving us a lot of information there. And of course, as we go through the Bhagavatam, we'll meet these different forms of the Lord. Their names are given: Baladev, Shankarshana, Vasudeva, Aniruddha, Pradyumna, Narayana. And then the categories: the Purusha avatars, the Guna avatars, the Lila avatars, Yuga avatars. They'll all be discussed here. People think that if God is a person, you're limiting him. But so here he's a multitude also. He's a crowd. And he says here, many other thousands of manifestations of the personality of Godhead are Lord Sri Krishna's plenary portions and integrated parts. Plenary means with full powers. But he now goes on to distinguish the living entities, are separated parts and parcels of the personality of Godhead. I want to discuss that a little bit. There's almost parts and parcels and separated don't seem to be opposite things. If you're part and parcel and then you're separated, the living entities are separated parts and parcels of the personality of Godhead. So that there's inventory of beings here. Therefore, Lord Sri Krishna is the original form of Godhead, and he is the last word in the transcendence. Last word. Thus, he is more attractive to the higher transcendentalists who participate in the eternal pastimes of the Lord. Oh, so now you're talking about something else, the higher transcendentalists. So there's grades of transcendentalists too. But what do? They participate. They just don't sit and listen. They participate in the eternal pastimes of the Lord. In forms of the personality of Godhead, other than Sri Krishna and Baladev, there is no facility for intimate personal contact as in the transcendental pastimes of the Lord at Vrajabhumi, meaning Vrindavan. So here are the ones that are in many ways the highest, because this facility for intimate personal contact is not anywhere else. You may have contact with the Lord, but it may not be so intimate when there's awe and reverence. For example, when the Lord, because Krishna has beauty and he has majesty. And when the majesty overwhelms his beauty, then he's Narayana, and the Purusha avatars and so on, where his majesty is there. And when majesty is there, you have to stand back a bit. And there's some awe and reverence. But here, when his beauty overwhelms his majesty, then Krishna and Balaram in Vrindavan, there's intimate personal contact. One is able to have that kind of association with the Lord. Otherwise, you would think that the Lord has got problems. He's lonely. Everyone else is afraid of his majesty, and all he can sit there is by himself, and while everybody else goes around going, holy, 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 holy. And I think maybe it's not very interesting. But here, the place of intimate personal contact. When Krishna is in Vrindavan, this is his private life. Prabhupada, Prabhupada calls this confidential. And by confidential, he says not everyone will be able to appreciate it. And he goes on, now I'll go back to the text here. The transcendental pastimes of Lord Sri Krishna are not newly accepted, as argued by some less intelligent persons. Right now, nothing comes to mind who that is. I think there's some innovation that was added to later. But he says rather, and by said not newly accepted by, I guess, by devotees, I don't know. His pastimes are eternal and manifest in due course in once in a day of Brahmaji. So it may be that if it happens only once in a day of Brahmaji, that they are manifest in due course on this regular schedule. Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes are shown here on earth once time in a day of Brahma. There's 1,000 yuga cycles is the length of Brahma's day, and only in one of those yuga cycles that Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes are shown. So it doesn't always happen. So we happen to be in that yuga cycle, and whenever Krishna appears and shows his Vrindavan Leela, Lord Chaitanya comes after to make give us ability to have it more accessible to us. So his pastimes are eternal and are manifested in due course once in a day of Brahmaji, as the sun rises on the eastern horizon at the end of every 24 hours. This is the regular schedule idea. All right, let's read Prabhupada's purport. Did we read Prabhupada's purport? No. That's what you just finished. That's Prabhupada's purport. Okay, and then I was talking about it. I keep, I'm sorry. Yeah, Vishwanath Chakravarti's purport. Short. Very short. By saying with great joy, it is indicated that even at the stage of sadhana bhakti, there are no difficulties. So that's a good thing to know. At sadhana bhakti, there are no difficulties. That's nice to hear. But you do have to do sadhana bhakti properly. If you properly, there are, uh, when in other words, when there's sadhana bhakti, you may not yet have much direct experience, emotional experience of Krishna. Nevertheless, although you're doing it not because of a spontaneous liking, but even at the stage of sadhana, uh, if you do it under proper direction, you will not have problems. So he seems to anticipate this idea that, yeah, well, in the beginning, sometimes there's not much joy, You don't want to get up early in the morning and so on. And you do it under orders. You're not spontaneously attracted yet, but you follow the orders. But then what happens, if you do follow those orders, then there will not be any difficulties. You cannot expect to do your own thing, not to follow the proper directions, and also expect to experience actual transcendental bliss. You'll substitute something else for it, as we see here. Okay. I think I had some more to say. Let me check. Yeah, when this reference. Oh yeah, this is what I wanted to figure. This reference to Lord Krishna is the Swayam Rupa, personality of Godhead. This is a reference to Bhagavatam 1:328, and I have the book here if you can't get it.
This is the 22. I don't have that saved on there.
Yeah, so I'll read it here.
Are you reading the whole thing?
No, just the text.
I can get it if you want.
You see, in this next chapter, chapter 3, there's a whole survey of various forms of the Lord. There's a whole list of incarnations that it goes through. And so he's going ahead to this where after there's been a list of, and this happens repeatedly in the Bhagavatam, you get lists of avatars and then sometimes whole chapters and chunks of chapters just describe one. So you get an idea of just how great Krishna is. But this one, this 28, ete chamsa kala pumsam krishnas tu bhagavan swayam indrari vyakulam lokam mridayanti yuge yuge. All the above mentioned incarnations are either, so you see here it's that's why I told you that all these things are there, because they're above mentioned. This is the first big survey of the different forms of the Lord. They're either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions. The words in Sanskrit are amsha, which Prabhupada calls plenary portions. Plenary means with full power, yet it's an amsha. It's only the Lord in a certain aspect or certain features, but still they're plenary portions. Or portions of the plenary portions, expansions or expansions of expansion, because that's been mentioned in today's text that these different forms of the Lord are there. So they're plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions. Kala and Amsha. Amsha is the portion, and the Kala is the expansion portion of the plenary portion. Those are there. But Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam, but Krishna is Bhagavan himself, Lord Krishna himself. Bhagavan Swayam. He's not a portion of the plenary portion or an Amsha, but he is Bhagavan Swayam. And he descends yuga after yuga, age after age. When the Indrari, the enemies of Indra, that is the demons, have disturbed the universe. That's particularly when there is, here the translation, all of the above mentioned incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord. But Lord Sri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. This is this Bhagavan Swayam. All of them appear on planets whenever there is a disturbance created by the atheists. These are the Indra, the enemies of India, the Indra, the atheists. The Lord incarnates to protect the theists, he says here. So this is the sort of big game plan of the Bhagavatam. And it's describing a universe in which there is a kind of cosmic battle going on between the devas who are running the universe as responsible agents of God, and the anti-gods, the demons. They're also supernatural, at least to us, in the sense that they're beyond, they have powers that we don't have. They're demonic because they want to take over control of the universe. That's what they want to do. There's this cosmic battle going on between the forces of good and the forces of evil. It's Star Wars, the original Star Wars. And they even, they have spaceships, vimanas. They travel to interplanetary warfare that's been going on everywhere. And when it looks like there may be difficulties for the devas, the demigods or the godly, at that time Krishna comes. And Prabhupada gives the example somewhere, so maybe it's a text. When you rub together the friction between two pieces of wood, fire comes out. So similarly, when there's friction between the devotees and the demons, Krishna comes out. He becomes manifest. That's why we have so many stories now where also, we'll hear about Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha and on of these pastimes. So that's what the reference to this chapter here, chapter 3. Yeah, so let's see.
Next verse, or you want to take questions?
No, I think, let's see if we have any questions, comments, some discussion.
Thank you all for attending, and if anybody has any questions or comments,
or some sort of reflection that you would like to share, go ahead and type that into the chat box if you're on Zoom, or you can raise your hand and I'll unmute you. You can unmute yourself so you can speak. And then if you're on Facebook, go ahead and type your comment or question into that chat box, the comment section there, and I can read your comments or questions aloud. And just to start off with Tulsi Priya, in response to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary, she says, seems that if we accept this statement, meaning Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's, then the only difficulties experienced are due to a lack of determination, ?
Yeah, because, I mean, sadhana bhakti means you do stick to the program, although you may not be spontaneously, you know, some days it's going to be hard and some days it's going to be easy, but you stick to the orders of the spiritual master and you do it like that. And so as long as you're on the stage of sadhana bhakti, one has to achieve a certain kind of steadiness in order to be able to perform sadhana bhakti. On again, off again, it's not very, you'll get frustrated and look for a quicker fix for happiness in many things that are provided by the people that run the economy for you. I think that is what he's talking about. We have our problem is distraction. Distracted from distraction by distraction. That's our one poet, T.S. Eliot, I think, distracted, describing the modern world. There are so many distractions. You notice that, especially with the internet, I mean, we're using it, it's nice to have, but at the same time, everyone's trying to get a piece of your attention somehow or other. That's advertising, is to grab your attention. Your attention is very, very valuable to people. And there's not many people saying, you should pay attention to Krishna. This is where your attention should go. Because when you pay attention to something material, it's a very restricted. And after a while, because it's not transcendental, you'll get sick of it. And therefore you have to go on to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, which people keep providing you, all the distractions. Because they're not satisfying and they narrow you down. But if you focus on Krishna, because he is the source of everything, he ultimately includes everything. I mean, Krishna and Krishna's energy is the whole of things. And Krishna includes his energies. He is inclusive. So that's why we can have a book about the Lord that runs so many volumes, and all the other studies of those books run volumes after volume, because he's so inclusive. And that will satisfy. So you go to Krishna, and then you come to understand everything. Because, you know, Krishna also is not a stranger. He's in our hearts. He's very close to us. He's the self of the self. And so also knowing Krishna, getting to where the modes of passion and ignorance start to decrease, and that presence of Krishna becomes more and more tangible. You can experience Krishna. And when we follow the regulative principles of Krishna consciousness, we are getting rid of some distractions, and therefore in the proper state of consciousness, we can actually be aware of the fact, really astonishing fact, that Krishna is very, very, very close to us. If he's the self of the self, how close is that? He's not a stranger, you know. We are part and parcel of Krishna. And then you go to Krishna, and then you start to relate to everything else in a different way. And so this doesn't, at first it may see that when you follow the principles of Krishna consciousness, the world disappears. You know, but you focus on Krishna, but in that process, the world comes back, but it's not the Maya world, it's the real world. But it's full of so many wonderful things. And you can start to see things the right way, hear things the right way, taste things the right way. And as Prabhupada said, every moment is a thrill. Because Krishna is there all the time, and you're seeing what Krishna is doing and Krishna is acting. And you really, you can really appreciate it by him. Go ahead. Anyone else?
Thank you. That was lovely.
Okay.
Thank you for that question, Tulsi Priya. That's really good. Yes, and thank you for your response. Just as one anecdote to that of, I'm seeing more and more in my line of work of working with teenagers that they express quite often of how they have a really hard time paying attention. They recognize that that's a problem. And it's made me appreciate more, even just on that level, of just having the practice that we do have of trying to chant the holy name, just even if there weren't any transcendental benefits to that, just that practice, because there are a lot of people out there who recognize that they have an issue, that they can't pay attention, and they don't know how to practice paying attention. They've never been taught any tools for that. So also just something to keep in mind as we are trying to do some outreach or talking with others, that this is a big issue for a lot of people. Is even if we're trying to teach people how to chant the holy name, this is going to be a very big issue and continues to be a big issue for people.
It's like a worsening thing, ADD, right? The attention deficit disorder. I mean, everybody in the material world's got it to some extent, but it seems to be getting worse, huh? What do people say it's the reason for it? ADD, why is it? I mean, they must treat it somehow or other, but they must have some idea where it comes from.
I mean, I haven't read any documentation on it, but I imagine, things like social media, even something as simple, we might think of it as simple, but just say even it's some sort of distracting activity like watching television. Even one generation ago, it was you would have to wait for your specific show that you wanted to watch to be on in a specific time and then watch it. And then maybe if you're really advanced, maybe you'd have some video recording machine where you can start to record the shows you wanted to watch and then watch it on your own time. And now whatever you want to watch at any single time, you just stream it. It's just by a click of a button, you can really narrow down what you are interested in. And you don't even have to wait for the next episode. You can, as they do, binge watch, do the whole couple seasons
binge watch
in one go. It's just my intuition is that all those play into decrease in attention, decrease in patience also.
There's also people paid to keep you involved on whatever social media site you're on.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, that's one thing that's really interesting is the internet that you see is not the same as the internet that somebody else sees who's next to you. It's very curated. of what advertisements, even what pages, even what certain pages look like. The same company can really have a different face to their page if they're really on the ball with those
Wow.
things. Oh, what a good time we live in. Anyways. Shifting gears, Adi Devi asked, she said, sometimes people experience dreams of ghosts and subtle entities or experience them in real life. What should they do when they are bothered by the subtle entities?
Chant Hare Krishna. They're like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing. If you chant Hare Krishna, the ghosts eventually don't like it. And ghosts are like parasites on the subtle body, you know, and they will be purged out simply by attentive chanting. So again, for the potency of the holy name, one has to fix the mind on the mantra, which is Krishna in the form of sound, very portable, you know. But you have to pay attention to that sound. And the mind goes away, will want to wander. It's fickle, you know. Arjuna raises this question in the Bhagavad Gita. How can you do this? It seems hard, you know, because the mind was restless. It's always wants to go somewhere else. So even then, it came up then, this problem with the mind, and it's much worse now. But Krishna says, no, it requires constant practice and detachment. So there is something that one needs to do. And to me, that has to be that you have to make time for chanting, and you really have to pay attention to the sound. And when the mind goes away, you notice it, that you're thinking of something else, bring it back. And just that is showing that you're interested. You're showing Krishna you're interested. And just your attempt, well, of course, everything gets better with practice, but also Krishna will help you because you're showing him that you are interested in a relationship. And therefore, there's some reciprocation. So even if you're distracted by distraction from distraction and so on, you'll still be able to do it. They'll help. You're not alone.
Thank you, Gurudev.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your question, Adi Devi. Any other questions or comments?
If I may?
Yeah, go ahead, Vijay Krishna Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji, for your service. Maharaj, my obeisances. This question is related to text 22, where I read that devotional service enlivens the self. And my difficulty is as follows. We know that the self cannot be killed. But we also know that sometimes we read or we hear that sinful life is such that it can kill the self. So my question is, when I look at a person with the self already killed or almost killed, I don't know how to express myself, Maharaj, I beg from you at least one symptom that this person is exhibiting just because the self is already killed or almost killed because of the sinful life this person is practicing.
Yeah, that's what happens. The self is literally not killed. but one who blocks anything that hampers the spiritual advancement of the self, so it can understand who it is and who the self of the self. Remember, Krishna is the self of the self. So knowing Krishna is something like knowing yourself. You can't doubt your own existence, and because who's doubting? And similarly, you'll not be able to doubt Krishna's existence. So the self is strictly speaking not killed, but what's killed is the advancement of the self to full self-realization, the experience of oneself in connection with Krishna. This is what really happens, and it feels like killing the self sometimes, but it's not. And you have to also remember that any spiritual advancement we make is permanent. You know, even if we only make in this life 30% advancement, you'll pick up next life where you left off. There's no loss in this thing. But still, we don't want to hang around a long time for many lives. We'd like to get it over with quickly.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Vijay Krishna Prabhu. And
Thank you very much.
any other comments or questions, either on Zoom or on Facebook? We do have a quick comment from Mandaleshwari Devi Dasi. She says, Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you for the nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam.
You're welcome.
Thank you for watching,
for listening
Mandaleshwari.
and watching.
Bhakti Impala has a question. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. Thank you for
Hare
the
Krishna.
nice lecture.
Good to see you.
Yeah. So also in the Bhagavad Gita, you know, the supreme knowledge is described as susukam kartam abhyayam, joyfully performed. And here also these verses are stressing so much, and you already touched upon this in the first question. But you know, if we're not experiencing joy, we must be performing something else than sadhana bhakti then, or because I'm pretty sure I'm on the path.
Sure.
I may not be perfect, but so how do we know, you know, where the imperfections are? We must be performing, you know, we must be committing some offenses in some way or other if we're not experiencing this happiness. So how do we find out?
Well, there are several different ways to find out. One way is to find somebody who's more advanced than you are and talk about it. What are the things that cause difficulties? But generally, to me, you have to have this time in your life where there's basically you and the holy name. It's like a small room, and in that room there's only two things. There's you, and there's Krishna in the form of the holy name. And you just have to keep calling to Krishna in that way. The mind of most of us skitters away, and because we don't yet have a taste for it, and we're doing it out of a sense of obligation. But but you are calling upon Krishna. You're doing it because you want a relationship. You're asking for a relationship. You want that relationship, and so you just have to show Krishna that you're really interested by just being perseverant. You're just being perseverant. And just that paying attention and being perseverant, you'll also see that the modes of passion and the modes of ignorance should be diminishing. If they're not, you're doing something wrong. It should be diminishing. St. Augustine said, when I was young and foolish, I said to the Lord, please give me chastity, but not just yet. So that kind of thing is, and so sometimes we have a doubt, and the doubt is that if I achieve Krishna consciousness, I'm going to be lacking somewhere or another. I'm still be dissatisfied. That doubt you should just cast aside. It's faith. That if you achieve Krishna consciousness, you'll be satisfied in every department. We accept it on faith. And if you want to have Krishna consciousness plus something else, which I've heard even people say to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, I really want Krishna consciousness, but one thing is I don't want some, And you can't have you should then pray to Krishna, please destroy this desire of mine. Because you can ask him, what are the obstacles? You have to be kind of frank and say, I know what my material desires are, and ask him, I can't destroy it. It's bigger than me. Will you please do it? And just you can nag him about it. You won't mind. Please do it. And so Prabhupada is sometimes described chanting as like a child crying for its mother. So it really wants it. So sometimes, it takes us a while to get to that position. But really, that's we are trying to get ourselves in a relationship with Krishna. And we want to show Krishna we want this relationship. And if you look at the whole thing, it's a little hard to imagine doing it, but if you just take the next step, and we should know what the next step is, what else I can do to make myself a little more Krishna conscious, a little more distracted or pulled aside by some other desire or some other want. Because you should have some faith in the process of Krishna consciousness. You won't want for anything, and it's sometimes hard to believe that, but you will. And if you get a little bit of experience in this, you'll see it's true, and then you can take the next step.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that question, Bhakti Paula, and thank you for your response. It's always somehow nourishing to hear those responses and reminders, because at least in my own experience, it's rarely that Krishna consciousness is just an upward trajectory every single day. We might have some plateaus or even some setbacks, and just to be reminded of the importance of focusing on chanting to develop that faith that engaging in Krishna conscious activities is actually going to make us happy in the moment and in the long run, much happier than any other activity can be. So thank you. And any other comments or questions?
Okay.
I think we can close out for today.
Okay, so we'll go on with, I think, the next, it's a longer verse and a longer purport.
Yes, so we'll resume next Sunday with text 23, 1 to 23. And then we'll also have Krishna book reading this Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I think it's the prayers of Lord Indra. So buckle up.
Yeah, there's a guy who went off the rails. Okay. Big time. All right, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai. Maharaj ki jai. Wonderful session again. Thank you very much.
Hare
You're
Krishna,
welcome.
Hare Krishna,
Thank you for your service, Shraddha Devi Mataji. Wonderful service.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Obeisances
Krishna.
to Jai Dvaita Maharaj. Thank you for joining again.
Thank you. Thank you.